My guests today are director Kauwika Harris and actor Shawn Ashmore. And Kyle Harris is of Hawaiian heritage and an enrolled Choctaw Nation citizen of Oklahoma. And he also previously served in the United States Navy and is best known for his Emmy Award winning feature documentary, I Stand the Guardians of the Water, and the crime thriller narrative Out of Exile. And he's here today to talk about his new suspense thriller, which I fell in love with, The Huntsman. And actor Shawn Ashmore also is with us today and has done many made for television movies and series, but it was his brief appearance in X-Men in 2000 that landed him a role in X2, X-Men United in 2003, and got him on the road to stardom. And as an added bonus, he even got his own personal action figure modeled after him. Currently, Shawn plays Wesley Evers, the assistant DA on the hit series The Rookie, and today it's all about their brand new feature film, The Huntsman. So, ladies and gentlemen, let's welcome filmmaker Kauwika Harris and lead actor in The Huntsman, Shawn Ashmore, to the show. Welcome, gentlemen.
Yeah, thanks
Thank
for
you for
having
having
me.
us.
You bet. Now, Kyle, I'm kicking this off with you. And as you know, I watched The Huntsman. And for the upcoming audiences, what is this film about?
I guess it's about a sort of an ICU nurse who is trying to work his way closer to a coma patient who is wanted for wanted for the murder of 6 women in this little small fictional town of Antrim, and nothing is as it seems. But yeah, I mean, a total serial killer thriller, psychological thriller in the vein of those movies. Yeah.
So, how did you come across the novel by Judith Sanders to write the script for the film?
I mean, it's a little bit of a long story, but not really. I mean, first you have to kind of look at like what I've been doing out here in Oklahoma. Is that's sort of where my base of operations is. I write and direct movies out here. I produce movies out here all the time. I have a producing partner named Nick Clement who is located in the Northeast up in Connecticut, and he's helping me with like investors and stuff like that with for our film projects. And anyways, he met Stephen Rittner, I guess in early 2023, so 3 years ago. He meets Stephen Rittner, who's up in New York, and he's adapted the book at this point, and he's wanting to produce it, and he's wanting to get it made. And so Nick introduced it to me and Jacob Snovel and Madison Bullock here in Oklahoma, and we read the script, and then we read the book, and there was some financing behind the project, and we were very interested in it. But before we went to shoot the film in 2024, we did a proof of concept short for the investor. It was like a 3-day shoot, and they really liked that. And from there, we hired a casting director and started making offers. And yeah, I mean, that was
well,
it.
well, then let
Here
me
we
ask.
are.
Well, let me ask you, Shawn. What intrigued you about the script that made you say yes?
Um, Several things. I'm a fan of psychological thrillers and genre film in general. It was a character that I'd never played before, and I really enjoyed my initial conversations with Kyle, and also Garret Dillahunt, who plays Lincoln Raider, was already attached, and he's an actor that I absolutely love. So between those three pieces, the idea of playing a character I've never played before, um, in a kind of genre that I like, Kyle's, I guess, like take on the material, and then the fact that Garret was already attached, I was excited to jump in.
Well, for you, Shawn, here you are dead center of the movie poster. How does it feel to be the lead character in this film, and how much different is that from being a lead versus, let's say, a supporting role?
It's always exciting. It's fun and exciting and challenging when, um, you're sort of given that opportunity. And to be very fair to all the other actors in the film, the movie doesn't work if you don't have a strong cast, and we did. I think everybody gives an incredible performance in the film. But yeah, it's exciting to be sort of like, dead center. It doesn't matter to me. That's not why I take a role, but it is nice to be given that responsibility and that challenge to be like, can we, as me as an actor, can I make it interesting to have an audience follow you throughout a story. So yeah, it's cool. But I don't approach the role differently or think about it any differently than any other role that I play. But like I said, it's a nice opportunity to have.
Well,
Truly.
you bring up a very good point, and Kyle, I'm going to kind of direct this to you because when I watch this film, you have let's. I'm trying to count really quick here. I'm going to say five,
Okay.
five main characters, and they in their own right, they're
Sure.
almost all of these roles are equal to one another. It's almost like you have five lead actors, and the
Hmm.
synergy within the characters is astonishing.
Oh, thank you. I think something we told you guys, if I remember correctly, Sean, I think I may have mentioned that everybody's a suspect until they're not, or at least perceived that way
Yeah.
from the audience perspective. And so I think it's just and plus you're shooting this film completely out of order, right? And if we reveal too much too early for Max, then it's like the gig's up. And so it was just how do we keep that? How do we track that with all the characters throughout? And uh, and so we kind of employed a special way of filming. And I remember obviously with the genre being a serial killer thriller and whatnot, we wanted to sort of lean somewhere else with it. And so one of the things I talked to my director of photography, Sam Calvin, about was, but while looking at all these sort of comparable films, what can we do a little bit different? In the film itself, the story is so intimate. There's a lot of characters just speaking in rooms, and so there's an element of like I wanted to zoom out a little bit and get a little bigger, a little more physical. And so in my rewrites, I added some action elements and stuff like that. But what we wanted to do was to really make the suspect feeling throughout with all the characters was just employ this way of filming. And so I looked at like Jonathan Demme. He did obviously he did Silence of the Lambs, but more so The Manchurian Candidate and Something Wild. And those films, I feel like The Manchurian Candidate specifically was probably a big comparable for this film. I don't know if a lot of actors know that, but me and Sean, or not me and Sean, me and Sam, we watched it quite a bit, and so we would shoot the film sort of traditionally, but we would always sort of come back to this sort of framing device where the camera is like right in front of the actors and they're just sort of looking into the lens. And if you do this, you know, if you do it right throughout, it just creates this sort of doubt or this eeriness to the story and the characters, like and the situations and the scenes that they're in. So you don't really know, like, what are they saying is the truth, or, anyways, that was the
Well,
way we did.
well, you bring up a point about the camera work because when you look at the scenes in the hospital where it's
Yeah,
Max and Lincoln together only in the hospital room,
yeah,
there's not hardly any dialogue unless another nurse walks in. And so the camera work is so important there because when you're looking at Max, it's the facial expressions and what I noticed with Sean though, if you watch the eyes for the audience, we're watching him. It's almost like we go inside his head because he doesn't say hardly anything, but we're in his thinking mode of what he's doing or trying to accomplish.
yeah,
That is a sign of a great actor and
Oh,
great
thanks,
camera
man.
work.
yeah. Well,
You
it's
know,
like
the
go ahead, buddy.
well, I was going to say the real challenge, and it kind of goes back to something that you were saying. It's like, okay, so you're the lead character in this, but Max probably speaks less than a traditional kind of leading character would speak, and that was part of the challenge. And Kyle and I talked a lot about that. A lot of this movie is about characters observing each other,
Yeah,
and that kind of goes into what you were saying about the sort of like voyeuristic nature of like having an actor look directly into the lens. It
yes,
throws the audience off without knowing why.
yeah,
Um, but again, it was a lot about these characters observing each other, and again, the thriller element, the whodunit element, sort of disappears if the characters are speaking too much. You give too much away. So that's part of the mystery, and that was also part of the challenge. And also, how do you keep that interesting and alive?
Sure.
Which was always my struggle in the performance. How do you um, keep the performance interesting and keep the audience with you if for the most part you're just watching this character observe the world around him? But that was a fun challenge, and I think we achieved some pretty cool stuff with that.
Well, the other cool element of you being in the scene with Lincoln in the very beginning of the in the film with the hospital room, watching your character, because like you said, it's the camera work. There's almost no dialogue, but you feel and sense this internal anger that Max
Mm,
has within him that he is trying his darndest to keep a lid on. Correct?
that's it.
Yeah. Again,
Yeah.
without spoiling anything, I mean, if once you've seen the film, I think it becomes very clear what that motivation and what that simmering, boiling underneath is. But that's the challenge, right? It's giving, being truthful in the performance,
Yeah.
so that when the reveals happen, an audience doesn't feel manipulated. It's like, oh, that's what that was about, as opposed to like, huh, I don't get it. Um, but without giving too much away as you go along. And again, that's always the challenge of a film like this, where there's a whodunit, where there's a mystery, where there's a reveal of what the actual truth is of the story.
Well,
Um,
yeah,
and
remember, well, of course, you already know the film by heart too. But
Mm.
what I love, Kyle, what that you did with Max's character, and it plays into what Shawn just said. When he went into the tattoo parlor and he gets the Latin term for vengeance is mine,
Yeah. Okay.
that is just the only element we needed to realize why Max is acting the way he is. Now, we don't know the full backstory on Max, but we know something triggered him to get even, and that's
Right.
all we needed. And never, this is the coolest thing, you never gave the plot away with just that little Easter egg you gave us.
Right. Yeah, there's that sort of reoccurring theme of vigilantism is in the film, right? I mean, that's where it puts Lincoln in the coma to begin with, um, and then the town uprising and protesting of all this. I think that's something also in the rewrites that we wanted to sort of build the world around, was elevating it through that. Yeah.
Well, Kyle, I have to compliment you on the opening of the film. You
mm,
built part of the backstory within the opening credits with the graphic design, which I absolutely loved. Why did you do it that way?
Man, that was a last minute thing too, because we had shot a lot of other scenes that were supposed to go in the edit, and they were in the edit for the longest time. And then we got to like the final stages of like the picture lock. We were literally maybe 2 weeks from picture lock, and I had a thought, and I knew better than to share it because when you get that far along, everybody's like, "What are you doing, director? Now you're just playing with things. You're going to delay things. Everything's going to go up in price." And I was like, "No, just think about this. What if we did something like this?" And I was watching. I can't remember. Maybe I was just watching a combination of like Fincher movies and Taylor Sheridan like TV series stuff where they had those opening title sequences. And I had just reached out to a VFX buddy who does a lot of my movies, and I was like, "Take a couple of these shots and just play with it. What would it look like?" And I gave him a script. Like I just wrote a script without telling anybody else about it. And so he went and kind of messed around. And he's like, "Well, if I do the full thing, this is the cost, blah, 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 blah." But I took it to the producers and they were just like, "Nope, do it, run with it, go. Like we get it." And so like literally 2 weeks later, 3 weeks later, I got the opening sequence back and showed it to them. And in addition to that, we kept having a problem with the title card, the Huntsman title card. We couldn't figure out if we wanted it in red, if we wanted it in white, if we were black, or like we were just having problems with it. And I didn't even tell my VFX artist about that. I just put in the script at the end of it. I had copy and pasted some stuff, and then the Huntsman card was on at the bottom, and he just added that in. and it worked. And so it was like that added little piece there, and I was like, "Holy shit!" Sorry if I can't cuss on here, but yeah, we were impressed with that, and then you can sum up all that backstory um, within that, right?
Well,
So
yeah, because when you have that opening graphic, and I literally, because when I first started the film, my first thought was, okay, I just love this. This is something that most filmmakers never
Mm.
do. And then when that opening, the whole graphic sequence, kind of giving us pieces of the backstory, then you bring in the first shot of the film is the lead female detective as she shows up on scene, and she's going to walk through that opening in the woods. So then you bring that backstory literally to life, and now we're already captured within the story.
yeah, yeah, it worked
Yeah,
out.
I didn't know that when I first saw the film that that's obviously how the film starts, but I love a stylized title sequence. And again, you skip. There's a ton of exposition to set up the story, to set up the details, to set up the characters. So again, those scenes were shot, but sometimes it's nice to just get to the meat of the film while
Right,
still needing to understand. And again, what I thought was so well done with the title sequence is you get all the information, it's clear, it's laid out, but not overly laid out. So I think and automatically the audience has to be engaged because they're trying to pick up details, they're trying to figure out what's happening, and so it turns that engagement for the audience on. That's how I found, because again, I didn't know that was coming. I pushed play on the screener and I was like, oh, cool, this is
yeah,
different. And you're getting tidbits here, tidbits there. It's enough information, and I found like my investigative brain turned on, and so
yeah,
that leads you right into the film. And you, again, with a movie like this, you want people to be paying attention, and there is an element of like, we're not spelling everything out for you, so you have to be engaged for it to make sense.
Well,
And so
yeah.
that just my experience personally when I watched it for the first time with title sequence was really cool.
Well,
yeah.
and Kyle, I'm going to give you another compliment here because I see so many independent feature films,
Okay.
and you did something that I wish a lot of other filmmakers will take notes with and
Mhm.
do from now on.
What's
You are
that?
keeping the pace up in a film that is 2 hours long, a feat that is very hard to do with independent filmmakers. I am so tired of the slow burn, which can get really boring. And I know people want to be dramatic and they want to kind of give an Oscar effect to it, but slow burns bore today's audiences because everybody's on their phones. So because of the short attention spans.
Right.
The pacing was so good. And Shawn, you just said it. You're already thrown into the storyline. You're like, okay, let's start mapping out the characters and see who done it. So
Right.
it's not slow. So Kyle, why was this pacing so important to you?
Man, I think if I would have had my way, it might have been an even more slower pace.
Don't
I
say
was about
that.
to I was about to bring that up.
Yeah. I yeah, because there is the director's cut that we actually sold is I think it's an hour 58, and then now it's cut down even more. But I mean, like I'm just a fan of like movies that when I think about my favorite thrillers, none of them are 90 minutes. You know, it's not for the most part, anyways. Like I'm looking at like a Fincher film. Like I just watched the Dragon Girl with the Dragon Tattoo, and that's like
Mm.
235.
Tune- Yeah.
You know, and then I watched Prisoners again recently. I watch it once a year, and that's like 235. And like I never feel a minute of it. Like I'm just in it, and I guess I come from like a world back. You know, when I grew up, I didn't have internet or I didn't have a cell phone until I was in college, and so like I don't get bored. I love reading books, and I read books every day, and so like I maybe I just have the ability to focus a little longer. Anyways, I feel like I appreciate something that takes its time, um, but like I feel like the pacing was good. I think in the rewrites that we did and added in some of those like red herrings that we can investigate, like the Sam Miller suspects and stuff like that. You know, those in the original script that we got and in the book itself, he's just a small little character. He was like a maintenance guy or a cook or something that they just mentioned in one report. And I thought to myself, why don't we just run with this and make this whole other thing with it, and then elevate it even more. Um, so I mean, I like just including those little moments and to ratchet things up a little bit more. But I'm excited to see it with everybody and see how everybody feels about it on
Well,
Friday.
this is a must see film. But since you brought up something, you said you're a reader. So let's investigate the reading part because I noticed the book next to Max in Lincoln's hospital room, The Murder of Madame Mazel. Tell me about the significance of that book in relation to the film.
Okay, I can. It's in the novel. Uh, in the novel itself, Max was a reader. Like he was reading to the coma patients, and it was sort of his. I can't. It's like spoiler alert things. Like
Yeah, don't no spoiler alerts. I'm trying really hard to keep it focused.
so, yeah. He's like, man. I get. Can I say posing? He's just reading to the ICU patients, and so that was one of the books that the titles that was in the novel itself. And so we just wanted to be true to that. But we ended up taking out the reading aspect of it and trading it in for something more visual with the headphones. Um, I think that was like a last minute thing or something that we maybe
Well,
decided
the whole
to
book
do.
was a mind game that he was playing with Lincoln.
Yeah, and that was the headphone stuff. That's not in the novel at all. And it's just something more visual that I wanted to include as something like mysterious. Like it just plants more questions in the audience's mind. Like, what is he putting on his head? Why is he doing that? What is he listening to? Um, and so I think that's just if you can plant questions at any time, the audience might lean in a little closer. So
Well, yeah, and so Sean, I want to ask you, because when I noticed the book in that hospital room, and then I got to thinking about you as an actor. How important is it to do outside research when creating your character for a role, especially outside the script?
Um, that's interesting. I mean, I think it really depends on how detailed the. So, I guess specifically for, I've done really deep research sometimes when I'm playing a professional, right? If I'm playing an emergency room doctor, if I'm playing a paramedic, if I'm playing a lawyer, FBI agent. I felt like for Max, his profession, because of the way the story is, was not the focus. So for me, the work that I did to prepare for this was really talking to Kyle. Really being like, how are we trying to portray this guy? Again, my whole obstacle and hurdle was how do I make this character real and truthful while not giving too much away? That was like a huge thing. And I didn't really know how that was going to work until we started shooting. Kyle and I talked about that a lot. It was a huge part of my own interior work and the work that I was doing on my own. Um, but you can only think about it so much. Sometimes it's like you need to get into the scenes. You need to feel the vibe. You need to, and I knew that it was going to work as we shot. And again, when I was seeing some of the camera, like the frames, the way that Kyle was lining these shots, and Sam was lining these shots up. And Sam did some great stuff. And we did there's one shot in particular that I really love, which is sort of like the Shining shot where it was looking up at the door. Do you remember in the bedroom upstairs at the Raiders house? And there's
Oh
like
yeah, yeah.
a shadow, just stuff like that where I was like, yeah, that's cool. Like, let's get that shot. And again, I was like, that's the Jack shot when he's like, trapped in the freezer, but just things like that where it's dramatic, it creates a cinematic effect. So yeah, so to answer your question, I prepare in different ways for different roles, but for this, yes, Max is an ICU nurse. He has a background in the military, but I didn't go. First of all, I've done a lot. I did play an emergency room doctor, so I spent time doing research for that. But for this, it was more like, how do I wrap my head around Max's trauma and journey? How do I try to understand even a percentage of the trauma, the emotional trauma this guy is going through.
Well, yeah, because Max, he's a very interesting character. He's a bit mysterious, as the audience is not sure what his whole backstory is in the beginning of the film. But so, Kyle, it
Yep.
slowly comes into view, and you paste his backstory in this film perfectly. I mean, it was perfectly. And so for you, Shawn, so you discussed your role as Max a lot with Kyle, but you're preparing a role in which a character wants revenge but plays the long game. And at the same time, he has a bit of a split personality. One, he's possibly a good guy, and the other side of him, he could possibly be a bad guy. What did you kind of play around with that?
No, the only way that I approached him was he is at the end of his rope and is living in pure desperation and is going to do anything he can to get his family back. Spoiler alert, if we need to cut that out. So there was the
Yeah.
effect for the audience is that they don't know if he's good or bad. But the
Sure.
reality and the only way that I was thinking about him is he's a man who is absolutely desperate and is willing to do anything to get his family back. So he's a good guy in his mind. Like there's nothing bad about that, you know. So
No,
he's
I get the whole mindset. I mean,
yeah.
there is that vigilante feel coming from Max, but in a way, well, I think it's justified.
I mean,
Well,
there's
yeah. I
ways
mean,
to go. Oh, go ahead, buddy. Go ahead, man.
yeah. I mean, I again, if when I'm approaching this character, if I was in that position, that's exactly what I would do. Like vigilante to me is not a bad word. That's not a villain. That means the traditional system or way of solving an intense problem is not working, and so you do it yourself. I don't
Yeah.
think there's anything wrong with that. Now, vigilantism, if you're just running around hurting people, but he's not. Like, he's pursuing justice in a very
Strategic.
restrained way. Yes, very strategic. So, yeah, he's not running around like overreacting to the situation, but he's just doing what he has to do. And again, because I don't think he fully knows the truth. If he really thought that he knew what was happening, I think he would have moved much more assuredly, much more fast. But my thing was like he's still trying to figure it out. He is a moral person. He is trying to do the right thing throughout, and that's what's so complicated for him as the story unravels and he starts to question this truth that he thought he knew or he I
Oh,
Oh, I think you froze up there, Shawn.
well, I could piggyback off
Yeah,
that. There's some
go
things
ahead.
he did though to throw off the scent in some ways where he's not sleeping. He's working third shift. He's doing these things, and so he's taking like these pills. But then you edit that up against a scene where there's a character that's being fed these things to kind of keep them, restrained. And so that's like, again, everyone's a suspect until they're not, kind of thing. And but
Well, yeah.
yeah,
Well, that was the one of the strongest points in this whole film. Everybody was a suspect, but
yeah,
I haven't. You played this storyline so well, and I also loved how you used the poison apple as a signature of the killer. It was kind of like a Snow White, even a Sleeping Beauty element, which is a very interesting clue in the film. But that's all I'll say.
yeah. I mean that was mostly the stuff in the novel that we wanted to kind of throw back to Judith, because it was written in the novel that she wrote, and so that was sort of the device used to poison the girls. And so like it's the media thing that dubbed it, right? So um, yeah, because we thought about that too. I remember there's some conversations about this. I was like, there's already the Huntsman film, and this, how far are we leaning this way? And so yeah, I think we did it, but we did it subtly. Yeah,
Well, I also like the removal of the hearts by the killer because that also plays a very big role in the film. And that's kind of like, I'm not going to call it an Easter egg, but the removal of the hearts by the killer plays into the emotional aspect of one particular character, which I'm not going to mention, which I thought was
yeah,
very significant to the story. And I loved how you played that.
Cool. Yeah, thank you. Yeah, just I didn't want to be too gratuitous with it, the violence and stuff. I'm not, I love Tarantino films, but I don't know if I'm like the get shot in the blood, Kill Bill, stuff. We try to keep it somewhat, grounded in realism a little bit. So,
Well,
yeah.
here was one of the things that I noticed. And ladies and gentlemen, when you have the opportunity to watch The Huntsman, I'm not, there's a lot of Easter eggs in this film. So if you want to play armchair detective, this is the perfect film to do so. But I want to give you
Please.
a hint, but I'm not going to spoil anything. Make sure when you watch this film, not everything is visual. You need to listen because there
Hmm.
are elements of dialogue that are
Okay.
clues, but they're not openly easy. So you really got to think because if you really think about it, you may be able to solve this before the ending of the film. I didn't solve it when it was revealed. So I love that. I love the fact that I'm sitting here watching the film and all of a sudden I go, "Oh my gosh." And then it all came
Yeah.
into view. And I love films that surprise us, and this film surprises us.
Yeah. There was a lot of edits done too to even hide it even more. I mean, we shot some stuff with the actor, and we ended up cutting a lot of it because it was just they would get it too fast, and so like we had to cut some stuff out. That was some really great stuff.
Well, yeah, and that's what I loved. The pacing
Mhm.
was absolutely perfect in this film. It wasn't slow. You constantly had the main characters in frame throughout the whole film, and we're trying to figure out who in the world did this. And
Sure.
so you really have an all-star cast here. Of course, besides Shawn, you had the amazing Elizabeth Mitchell. You had Garret Dillahunt. You had Brent Bailey, to name a few. I even saw my friend Van Quattro in the film as well. Um,
Yep.
so how did you get all of these amazing actors together?
I just asked them, man.
Surely.
No, uh, Van is someone I've worked with for a long time, and he's my Rip Torn, secretly. And he's just a great actor. He's done a lot of stuff in Hollywood, and he's down in Dallas, Texas now. But like Garret and Elizabeth, you know, the, I knew like Garret was going to be. If I could get Garret Dillahunt, that was going to be it. I saw him in the assassination of Jesse James and so many other movies, but that movie he had this haunting quality to him, like tragic quality to him, and I just feel like he does that. I don't want to like say he's a great actor, but he's to me he's a character actor, and so I thought that that's what this character is, Lincoln, and so I thought Garret would just do it really well at not saying much, but like portraying it all in his face, and so Garret was always a choice, and since he was the first person to attach the film, that was important, and then from there everybody was like, let's do this. So
Well, Sean, for you, you have worked with some incredible actors in your career. What was it like working with these amazing actors in The Huntsman?
Oh, incredible. Feel like whenever an actor gets asked that, they always say that, oh man, it was a great experience.
yeah.
Um, but it really was like, again, one of the reasons I was excited to sign on right away was because Garret was a part of it, and just like Kyle said, I'm a fan of his work. Loved him
Yeah.
in Deadwood, loved him in The Road, loved he's always solid, and
Yeah.
he has I feel like when I think of Garret Dillahunt, I'm like, that's a serious actor, like that's a
Yeah.
dedicated actor, and if he is going to come onto a film, he's gonna throw himself into the role, which he did, and so that's exciting. Like I want to jump in and tell a story, get intense. And Jesse was incredible, but the person that I really loved working with was Elizabeth.
Yeah.
She was so creative and free and fun and weird, like in all the best kinds of ways. So I just
Yeah.
didn't know what to expect. I really respect her work, but yeah, the scenes with her were very unexpected. The way that she would play a scene, her ideas, some changes she'd want to make, or a dialogue flip, and I was like, whoa, that's really, really interesting. And I
Yeah.
just, again, you're reacting to this performance, and she always gave me something unexpected. So that was something I was really grateful for. And some of the more challenging scenes for me, I felt were with the Jolene character, the deception of it. You know, Max is in this household with her. How he doesn't really know what to make of her. And on the surface, I think those scenes could have been a little like boring, to be honest. But she brought such an interesting quality and was kind of challenging Max in a way that I didn't always see on the page. And so when we started shooting those scenes, it was always, I was like, oh, this is interesting. I didn't see it going this way. And that's a gift. So yeah, it was truly, truly fun to work with everybody. But that in particular, I thought was kind of fun for me.
Well, that scene when it's you and Elizabeth, when you kind of made your way into her sculpting
Mm,
studio on your own, and then she
yeah.
shows up,
Yeah.
and then she walks you over to
It's a
one
great
of, I guess,
scene.
her favorite
Yeah.
piece that she did, and she puts her hands on the statue in a very seductive way, and I'm watching Max react. What was that scene like with you, for you? Did she kind of go? Did she kind of pull that out of the hat on her own, or?
No, that was on the page. This sort of like this intimacy that is kind of created. But she's so comfortable in herself, and so uh, yeah, just so free, and so I think it disarms Max, and I feel like there's almost this like slight attraction until Max kind of catches himself in what's happening. And he has to, and I think he's fully aware. He's always watching and figuring out what's going on. And I think he knows this about Jolene. But in shooting the scene, getting to that place was much easier. Like that Jolene character is very intoxicating. And I think that that's what she brought to that scene. Disarms Max in a way that, and I actually, in watching the film, I feel like Max is the most relaxed in a way around Jolene. And there's a lightness to him sometimes because she's so easygoing that he can sort of like get lost in and feel a little bit more normal with her. And that scene was one of those things. But yeah, I think it's a great scene. I love the way it's shot, where at the end it's over. It's behind the camera's behind us. You don't see our. I don't know that we shot. I think we did shoot coverage of that, but you didn't use it.
We didn't shoot the frontals of that. No, we shot only from behind. Yeah.
Yeah, and
That's a,
so it doesn't even play on our faces. It's like the statue looming over us, the sculpture looming over us, and then the two of us in front. And it was an interesting way to shoot it. There was a lot going on our faces. Like I remember shooting that scene, and you don't see it in detail, but I can feel it when I'm watching the scene. The body language, the positioning, the weird, like and yeah, it was interesting. So,
yeah.
yeah, it was a fun. That was a fun scene to shoot, and I was really happy with how that one turned out.
Yeah, it was a great scene. Now, Kyle, how much freedom did you give the actors outside the script?
I think we kind of did a lot of rewrites, just like
Mm.
the day. Like sometimes, like if we did a scene where like we rehearsed before filming and it's something just didn't feel right, we would just change it. And I'm completely okay with that. I just had to be careful of the source material. Because the producer was there and he was also a co-writer and he was looking out for the investors, and the investors were there sometimes too, and the author. I think she was there for like a week. But yeah, and yeah, I'm trying to think, like, just not to get off subject, but like that night we were shooting that scene that we were just talking about, I think right in the film itself is a continuation where you walk outside the door and then there's Lincoln doing his
With his
Elmer,
rabbits.
with his Elmer
Yeah.
Fudd. And
Yeah.
and then we go straight to that fire, and I think we shot that like that. Like
We did.
so, yeah, we
Yeah.
did. And so, like I'm trying to, like, it's been a year and a half ago or longer, but like, which is crazy. But like, yeah, we shot all that sort of in order that evening, and I was just coming back to that for a minute. Sorry.
Yeah,
Yeah.
when Lincoln shows up with the rabbits, my first thought was, what are you doing out this late at night? And that's all I'm
Yeah.
going to say. I don't want to give anything
Well,
away, but it makes
that's
you.
literally what Max says. What are you doing, Lincoln?
It's just like a Twilight Zone starts to happen there for him, right? There's just like that
Yeah.
moment where it turns like that, and then suddenly all these characters in Max's orbit are now just sort of he's seeing them in a different way now. And
Well, yeah,
I
you put all the characters except for maybe the detectives. You put them all on a collision course, and
yeah,
you played that perfectly. So I have to ask, have you had any test screenings or private screenings of this film? Because I'm curious as to what the audience's reactions are. Because I loved it.
yeah, yeah. I mean, it feels like everybody was pretty positive. It was a cast and crew screening only, so that would have been last year in May. And so I haven't done any screenings with any cast yet. I mean, any audience members yet. So I'm excited. I mean, Friday we're doing one at 4 p.m. At Limley's in NoHo. So that'll be my first time with an audience to see, and Shawn and Garret. So if I'm sitting there between you guys nudge me, I'm gonna know it's like that didn't work. And
No. I'm as nervous. I'm as nervous as anyone.
Yeah.
Like it's. I always need to see a film before I see it with other people because I need to digest it, and I always hate stuff the first time I see it, and it has nothing to do with the
Same.
filmmaker. I'm just looking at my work, and I'm critical. So it's nice to have shot the films like a year and a half ago, have some distance from the experience, have seen a cut of it and been like, okay, I was happy with this. Why did I do that? And then, maybe that was 6 months ago that I saw the film or whatever. And now to be sitting with an audience and seeing it on a big screen, to me, it's enough distance where I can actually probably.
To piggyback off him, I don't know that it'll ever
Go ahead,
distance from
Kyle.
me being the filmmaker, because when I'm making the film and I'm sitting in the edit room and I'm living with this footage, for me it's like it's the magic trick, and I'm hiding things, and so like I know exactly where the boom is, and I know where the camera is. I know where B cam is right off camera, right off screen, and so I feel like as a filmmaker, and I'm watching my films, I'm like at any time this is going to happen. The boom's going to suddenly just be there. I don't know why. So I have a hard time watching my movies with an audience.
Yeah,
I make
I get it.
and then, but it'll be fun.
Yeah, I completely get it. No, go ahead, Shawn.
No, it's gonna be fun.
Yeah.
Oh, look, I'm being sincere and honest here. I love the film. I loved everything about it. It is worth the price of admission, and everybody needs to see this film when it debuts. But when I saw the ending of the film, so Kyle, I kept thinking, could you pull off a sequel? Because the ending camera shot leaves the audience with a little bit of an open interpretation.
Yeah, sure. Well, I think that's a two-parter there. I cannot remember, like, without spoiling it at the same time. I will say the first thing we shot with Garret Dillahunt, that was his first thing that we shot, which was obviously the last scene. So I remember me and him having conversations about that, and he was like, I don't even understand who I am yet. What am I? And I'm like, we're gonna get there, man. And so he didn't quite understand what we were trying to go for at that time, because it was all sort of just secretive and all out of order, and you got to like keep it, track it all. But to answer your question, I do not believe there is a sequel. I haven't heard anything from Judith Sanders on that. Yeah, because I think the way she intended it to ended that way, but we just made it a little weird. That's all.
Yeah, but I called it a good weird, because when I saw it, I was like,
Uh-oh.
Yeah. Where could this go? So I like that. I loved it.
Yeah.
I think you both did awesome. So
Thank you.
What's next on the horizon for Kyle Harris and Shawn Ashmore?
Kyle and I want to make another movie together.
Let's do it, man. Let's
Yeah.
go. We've got a couple of
We
projects. Yeah. So
yeah.
yeah.
And then I'm working on The Rookie. I just wrapped season 8 of that, and yeah, it's always it's hard to know what's going to come until it comes. And Kyle, as a producer, writer, director, you sort of know you've got all these things on the stove cooking, and you never know which one's going to pop up next. But in all sincerity, Kyle and I have been talking the last year about trying to get another thing going, because I would work with him again in a second. And I knew that when I watched Out of Exile, the feature that I watched that when I read the script, and I was like, I know that he had no money for this movie. I just know, and it was incredible. And also the performances he got out of everybody in the film, from the day players, the single line people, to the leads. I was like, this is a guy who knows story and performance, and also creates his own movie, his own world. And that's what I'm looking for. So I'm, Kyle, let's do it, man. I know it's not that easy, but I can't wait.
Long live the independent filmmaker.
No doubt.
Exactly.
I mean, it's the heart of the industry. And ladies and gentlemen, Kauwika Harris's The Huntsman centers on a repressed ICU nurse played by lead actor Shawn Ashmore, who volunteers as a reader for a recovering coma patient played by Garret Dillahunt as Lincoln, the prime suspect in the savage murders of 6 young women in a small southwestern town. Now, the suspect's wife, played by the amazing Elizabeth Mitchell, refuses to believe that her husband is the killer, struggles with the mounting complexities of the investigation, and with a dedicated detective trying to solve the mystery before more bodies turn up, numerous other suspects take the case on a spiraling journey. Now, The Huntsman gives all of us armchair detectives an amazing film to watch. We can dissect it, we can choose who the killer is, but will you be right or will you be wrong? You know, there are clues, so pay very close attention. So not only keep your eyes open, keep your ears open as well. And forget about Knives Out. You want to see The Huntsman. So, ladies and gentlemen, well, I should say, thank you, Kyle and Shawn, for sharing this amazing film with me today, and much success to you and the film.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Hey.
Thank you for having me.
Oh, absolutely. It's been an absolute joy. And ladies and gentlemen, The Huntsman, it's about to debut, and you need to be in the theater to see this incredible film. It's worth the price of admission, as well as the popcorn, the soda, and the candy. So, ladies and gentlemen, you can watch or listen to all of the Bond on Cinema interviews at bondoncinema.com. Check out our Prime show, our YouTube channel, Spotify, iTunes, and more. And remember, you're either going to see me at the movies or from the red carpet.